Welcome to this space, to this time set aside to honor the life of Donald Clovis Williams. The sorrow and joy of life weave a tapestry of our individual lives as death gathers us into community. To bid one we have known and loved farewell and adieu, to search for life's deepest meanings, and to seek the comfort and the healing people offer to one another. At this time, we are united with the wisdom and customs of all people in all ages. Through our own sense of strength and resources, we feel the embrace of the ageless human community. And it is in this spirit we join our individual feelings and thoughts as well as faiths that sustain us separately into a harmony of remembrance and affirmation. We shall celebrate Don's living and we shall grieve his dying, because we know the truth of William Blake's words. Joy and woe are woven fine. Under every grief and pine runs a joy with silken twine. It is right, it should be so. We are made for joy and woe. Today we grieve Don's death, but we also celebrate his life. Though our grief is strong and we must mourn, we will not let the shadow of death obscure the living life of the person who touched us many times in many ways, filling our lives with memories, meaning, and love. We are also here to show support and love to Don's husband, David, and Don and David's extended family. Let us remember that love and support continues beyond today. Let us gather this afternoon to remember and celebrate the life of Donald Clovis Williams. A human life is sacred. It is sacred in its being born, it is sacred in its living, and it is sacred in its dying. As Don was a beloved active member of this church, and one of the many ways we acknowledge sacredness is through lighting our chalice. It is with this sacredness in mind we light our chalice today in honor of the sacred life of Donald Clovis Williams. Please rise in body or spirit to sing our hymn, which is in your order of service on the back page. Morning has broken. Please be seated. We know that time defines our limit, even as eternity expresses our hope. We know that life, mine and yours and ours, is the tension of time and eternity, and that death is the resolution. Our knowledge, our ignorance, our fear of death leaves us in truth with only one clear choice: to choose what we shall do and be in the limited time we have, to create ourselves within the structures of human existence, dying as we live, living as we die. What we know is that death is natural, a biological phenomenon to the very complexity that is the source of our uniqueness as a life form. Such a complicated structure as the human being breaks down in time, that we know without doubt and without exception. The acceptance of death intensifies our awareness of life, making each flower, bird, and mountain, each artifact of life, more precious and more beautiful, which then becomes a spur to us to make something lovely and meaningful of the life that is ours. To spend ourselves completely enables us to know a sense of fulfillment, a sense of having really lived, which help us to overcome our fears of death and dying, our frustration at life's brevity, our bewilderment at our fate. We are each unique, but we are not ultimately alone. What we do matters to ourselves, to the people in our lives, to the planet that is our home, even to the stars in their courses. The acceptance of death is grounded in the knowledge that we are connected in life and in death to each other and to each being. So in the face of Don's death, we affirm his life, the goodness to be found in his living and loving, the goodness to be realized in and through another life like our own, a life that grief presses upon us, our thoughts and feelings just now. Blessed are those who remember. Blessed are those who take in and honor the memories of others. Somewhere in each of our lives and our memories is some story, image, or phrase which Don's spirit has given life. Each of our memories are unique to us because we are each unique individuals. The sacredness of a human life becomes amazing in how it can ignite such a variety of responses to those it touches. We now move into a time to honor and celebrate the memories of Don's life. The power of these memories will become a comfort in the days to come.
My life flows on, an endless song, a mother's lamentation. I hear the real, though far off hymn, that hails a new creation. Through all the tumult and the strife, I hear the music ringing. It sounds alive.
I am honored to read the beautiful eulogy that Don's husband, David, wrote for this afternoon. Donald Williams was born January 24th, 1947, in the mining town of Brisbee, Arizona, located 7 miles from the border with Mexico. His father was a copper miner who worked in the Copper Queen mine in Bisbee, and his mother was a housewife. To quote Don's father, they were dyed-in-the-wool Southern Baptist. He graduated from Bisbee High School in 1965, and during his tenure at Cochise College, he became a radio announcer. He married Carol Cochran in 1968, and they moved from Bisbee to Riverside, California, where he received a degree in psychology with a focus on alcoholic treatment from California Baptist University. At the time, he weighed 400 pounds. While in Riverside, he and Carol elected to be candidates for a new and experimental intestinal bypass surgery, and as a result of the surgery, he lost 230 pounds. The surgery resulted in a rare form of arthritis, which would plague Don for the rest of his life. They moved to Northern California in 1970, where he accepted a job in alcoholic treatment at Ross Hospital in Marin County. During his time there, he responded to a call from God to enter parish ministry, and he enrolled at Golden Gate Southern Baptist Seminary in Marin County. It was during this time he began to question his sexual orientation and his attraction to men. For his MDiv degree, he wrote a paper on the acceptance of homosexuality in the church, for which he was expelled from seminary in 1971. He and Carol divorced in 1972. Don remained in the Southern Baptist Church for a while, then found a stronger support for himself and fellowship with other gay men in the Episcopal Church. It was at St. Aidan's Episcopal Church in San Francisco, where as a single gay man, he found a spiritual home and where he met David in 1977. Still working in alcohol treatment, Don became head of OSNAM, a substance abuse and detox center in San Francisco run by St. Vincent de Paul. In 1980, David moved into Don's Hyde Street flat, thinking this would be just 6 weeks of fun at the most. Just 6 weeks. That 6 weeks turned into 43 years. Wow. In 1981, they discovered the First Unitarian Universalist Church of San Francisco and quickly joined, becoming involved in the life of the church. Don was on the board of trustees, and David was active in the choir. They would be here just 5 years when in 1985, they bought a 4-bedroom house in Petaluma and commuted 40 miles to the city 5 days a week. By this time, Don was in management at Bank of America, and David worked in IT at Wells Fargo Bank. They became members of the UU Fellowship of Sonoma County and were asked to serve on a new denominational committee called the Welcoming Congregation, a program whose mission was to bring about inclusiveness of gay, lesbian, and bisexual people in Unitarian Universalist congregation. They joined PFLAG, Parents and Friends of Lesbians and Gays, which led to their introduction of the Welcoming Congregation program at other Protestant churches in Sonoma County with mixed results. Don and David visited more than 30 churches in the county over a 9-month period, presenting the program. At one Lutheran church, during a question and answer period, a woman in all seriousness asked, "What does a homosexual look like?" In recognition of their social justice work, this church presented them with the Conrad Reiner Award in 2008. In 1996, Don and David inherited a home in San Francisco in the Glen Park neighborhood where they lived for 10 years until Don could no longer navigate the stairs. Don was instrumental in bringing about domestic partner benefits at Bank of America in 1996. Don and David were married 3 times to each other. They first decided to marry in 2000 before GLBTQ marriage was legal. And our emerita, Reverend Margot Campbell Gross, married them, and as an act of social justice, she refused to sign the marriage license until gay marriage became legal for everyone. When San Francisco Mayor Gavin Newsom opened the marriage doors in 2004, they promptly got married at San Francisco City Hall. Then the civil rights to marry the person they loved were taken away by the state of California. But in 2008, the Supreme Court of the United States overturned California's ban on same-sex marriage, and to celebrate, Don and David decided to marry a 3rd time in City Hall with the full blessing and support of this congregation. They were married by the Reverend Greg Stewart, and our own Nancy Munn, where's Nancy? There she is, sang a beautiful solo. Don and David loved hats, especially Easter hats. They started the Easter Hat Library, which is still in existence at this church, in 2004, and many of the pictures you will see today are from Easter Sundays past. Beginning in 2009, Don's arthritis worsened, and they moved from their 3-story Glen Park home to a single-story condominium 1 block from the church. Don retired from Federal Home Loan Bank in 2009, and David from Visa in 2012. Don started losing his ability to walk in 2016, and by 2018 was completely bedridden. In 2017, David suffered a stroke, and taking care of Don became increasingly difficult. They moved to Ivy Park Assisted Living in February 2023, and Don went into hospice care in August. He passed away peacefully on November 6th. Don is survived by his sister, Melva, who is 7 years older and lives in Pilot Point, Texas. His nephew, Lauren, and his family are with us today to celebrate this life, along with members of David's family. Don had a wonderful sense of humor, a beautiful smile, and in spite of much physical pain, brought much joy to this world. His spouse, David, continues to be involved as a member here. And I would just add, that sparkle of his eye is something that I hold dear and remember dearly.
Dear, to call you to mind, for sleeping or waking, dear, I find the very thought of you, and I forget to do the little ordinary things that everyone ought to do. I'm living in a kind of daydream, of you. The longing here for you. You'll never know how slow the moments go till I'm near to you. I see your face in every flower, your eyes and stars above. It's just the thought of you, the very thought of you, my love.
I'd like to take this time now to invite others to broaden our understanding of the life of Don with their own memories. We'll start with those who have prepared words. I'd like to invite Kathy Malone up to speak.
Hi, my name is Kathy Malone, and Don was a friend of mine. I met Don about 10 years ago in an ongoing support group, very similar to our small group ministries, major exception being that this group was open-ended and was not constricted by a limited number of sessions. I was immediately drawn to Don's joie de vivre. He would often greet you with a song. He would dance his fingers as he would sing with such joy. He was quick with a joke or a pun, often filled with innocent innuendo. But once the group started to settle and begin, Don would switch gears and become an attentive listener, filled with compassion and understanding. He was our de facto leader in a leaderless group. He would gently, or sometimes not so gently, remind us no crosstalk until everybody had a chance to check in. Crosstalk was for later, when socialization took place. Eventually, Don's health got to the point where it prevented him from attending group on a regular basis. But he was always there in spirit. If we interrupted one another or drifted into crosstalk, someone would pipe up, "What would Don say?" And immediately, to the person, we'd get back on track. On a more personal note, several years ago, I was living in an untenable situation. I knew I needed to make a change, but felt paralyzed to move. The group knew of my situation, and everyone was incredibly supportive. But it was Don who took the concrete step and literally, took my hand and walked me up to Martin Luther Tower, where he helped me get an application and get on the waiting list. As many of you know, I've lived in the tower now for over 6 years, very happily. Thank you, Don. More recently, despite his being bedbound and heavily medicated, Don learned of my recent attack by a homeless person. He immediately showed appropriate outrage and loving concern. Once again, he was there for me. You were a special friend, Don. I miss you. Rest in peace.
Thank you, Kathy. I'd like to invite Lauren Randolph up for words.
Kinds of things. My name is Lauren Randolph. I am Don's youngest nephew. My mom, my brother's only sibling, and the rest of my family was unable to travel here. So they've given me some remembrances that they'd like to share with you all. So this is my mom's, what she had to say in her own words. He was born in Bisbee, Arizona, which is a small copper mining town where our dad worked in the mines. Don was born during a copper strike, and there weren't enough hospital beds for the newborns, so they put them in dresser drawers. Baby Donald was a dresser drawer baby. I was the big sister, but Don was a tag-along, wanting to do whatever I was doing or go wherever I was going. I remember one time making paper chains with him to keep him out of Mom's hair. We grew up in Don Louis, a part of Bisbee. He occasionally rode horses, was a local radio announcer for several years, and he loved to sing. He had a beautiful voice, just like Dad did. He always enjoyed a good humored joke. I will miss him very much. That's from my mom. My brother Kevin, the oldest of the three of us, has these remembrances in his own words. My memories of Uncle Donald go back to a tiny hamlet in southeast Arizona called Don Louis. He had this made-up pirate brogue that we kids could not get enough of. Please, Uncle Donald, do it again, do it again. We would laugh and try to imitate him. Then there was a stint at a small town AM radio station as a DJ. I would get Grandma to tune in to him because in my eyes, he was a big shot radio announcer. My uncle was a fun-loving, gentle-spirited man who loved a good laugh. He will be sorely missed by those who knew him and loved him best. Kevin. My sister Cindy, the middle of us, told me this. Don was an incredible encourager. He sent this to me when I was going through a tough time. 5 tips for women. It is important that a man helps you around the house and has a job. Number 2, it is important that a man makes you laugh. Number 3, it is important to find a man you can count on and who doesn't lie to you. Number 4, it is important that a man loves you and spoils you. Number 5, it is important that these 4 men never know each other. He always knew what I needed to hear most and when I needed to hear it. He is irreplaceable and will be deeply missed. That's from my sister Cindy. As you could tell by my family's story of Uncle Donald, humor was one of his most endearing characteristics. When I think of Uncle Donald, I too remember his quick wit and wonderful sense of humor. Like the time, don't know if you remember this, we were driving to our house. Uncle Donald was driving, Dave was in the riding shotgun, I'm in the back seat navigating. We come to a fork in the road. I tell Uncle Donald, go straight. He said, people have been telling me to do that for years. As a longtime 49er fan, he and David had season tickets at Candlestick. One game, they generously gave my dad and me their tickets, and we had a great time. I will always remember that. Thank you. That was awesome. He lived with us for a time, and he always treated us kids like adults. Never condescending, always helpful, and known for being a good cook. He has always been my favorite uncle. You know, I think every one of us here who've had the pleasure of knowing him, I think we're all better off for it.
As I set up this next part, Jonathan, I need a microphone up here. Could you please bring that forward for me? This is only a snapshot of Don's life, and I would like to invite others to broaden this view with their own memories. For those who may have spontaneous words to share, we will take time for those who would like to speak. All are welcome, but none are required. We won't be concerned with whether they are prepared or polished. Thank you. Nor how many words or how much silence falls between them. The mark of their value is how they touch us and within, and not how loud or long they sound around us. If you would like to speak, please come forward or raise your hand and I'll bring the microphone to you.
Hi, Don and I served on the Board of Trustees together. He was my mentor in a time where I got elected to find out there was people trying to fire the senior minister. And so Don was one of the people on that board that kept the congregation together. It was really hard work. We had to talk to people on the board that didn't agree with each other on whether the minister should stay. But Don was the kind of person that would make you listen to each other and deal with the real issues. And I learned so much from him. But the other thing I learned is his sense of humor was unstoppable. So he and I had to sit next to each other on the board so we wouldn't look in each other's eyes and start rolling our eyes when someone else was talking. Because we would do that and start laughing at really inappropriate moments. But he taught me a lot, and I miss him.
Yes, Don's humor. Unfortunately for me, I have been a member of this congregation only about 15 years, so I did not know much of the past. But as a relatively new member coming in, Don, I don't know where he got them from, but every Easter, he would have hats. These were not just hats. One year, and it happened to be a day that I was speaking from the chancel, Don said, "You need to take this hat." The hat was a bird cage with a small bird swinging on. And so I stood up here on Easter, and I was raised Catholic, and I said, "Wow, a guy standing up front wearing a funny hat. This felt right at home." I don't know where Don got those hats, but he had them every year, and we love them so, so, so much. Just like we love Don. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Allison Jacks. I was a minister here for many years, a member first, a seminarian, and then had the privilege of serving here at the church. And I learned about Don and Dave after they had left to go to Santa Rosa. There was a church member, Marjorie James, who I had become friends with, and she knew Don and Dave, and so I would hear stories of them and how much she loved them, and their humor, for sure, was a shared thing. And then they came back, and I felt like I was meeting prodigal sons. And I was in seminary at the time, and I just, there's meeting people that change your lives, and church community is a place that can happen. And what shapes one as a person, and certainly as a minister, I cherish all the years that I got to have with them once they were back, to know they shaped me as a minister, and their love, their deep love for this community, for the people who are part of this church, and beyond. I mean, just their general love, and listening to the choir sing of that song of how we just need to keep on singing. I just feel like that just was Don all over. We can just hear Don twinkling his hands and singing. And so I'm just so grateful to have known him and to have had both of you in my life. And I know for so many people here, so love you. Love you.
Hi. Don and David were our neighbors across the hall in the condo building right here for several years. And we were very friendly and socialized on many occasions, and watched each other's cats and things like that. And I'm just bringing this up. I mentioned it to David fairly recently, and he appreciated it, and he felt good that I told him that, so I'll share it here. That Don and I went for lunch one day on Polk Street. We walked up there, and we were talking, and at the time I thought the way to address the debates and controversies and prejudices against same-sex marriage and stuff was, my solution was a non-confrontational one of just make civil unions at City Hall the actual legal thing, and then anyone that wants to be married can do it here, there, or wherever, and not whatever. And he said, no, that's not enough. And I said, okay. We had a very reasonable discussion, and he changed my view. And to me, that's like very meaningful and impressive, and he could do that. And it wasn't a kind of a battle discussion. It was just a discussion, and where we could reason with each other. And I said, okay. He said that, and he said, it's not enough. And I said, okay, why is it not enough? And by the end of the conversation, that just, changed me. So I think that says a heck of a lot about Don in that way, too. Thank you.
Hey, Millie Phillips. I'm community minister here at this church. And I just wanted to thank Don and David also. As people have mentioned, they're both such helpful people and such kind and generous people, and for supporting, my call to ministry. And when I was a seminarian, I was able to interview them about their life story, and as part of a project I did on the history of Unitarian Universalism and marriage equality, and how generous they were with their time and resources, and how inspirational their own personal love story was to me and still is. So thank you, Don. Thank you, David.
I'm Natalie Freeberg. I was a member here before we moved to Austin, Texas, but we're back. I'm actually going to come up here because I want to talk to David rather than... Hi. Yeah, I bring condolences and love from Brian Ferguson, who is the Reverend in Redwood City at the UU Fellowship there. I wanted to say that when we first joined, I was against joining a church community because I'd never been to a church that I agreed with what they said. When we came here, we found a community, but it was the love that we saw between you and Dawn that made us realize that this was the community that we wanted to be a part of. And it made us advocates and allies and active allies for marriage for everybody, because we were the ones that had the privilege of being straight and being able to be married. So thank you for inspiring that in us. And I wanted to tell a story about Dawn. We moved to Austin for 2 years. We stayed 14, and we raised a Texan. And so we were reminiscing about Dawn when I said I was going to come here today. And he said when he was in the Coming of Age program, he was partnered with Zach Deichgross. Please forgive me if I've pronounced that incorrect. And they were selling fair trade soccer balls. They had found out that the industry of making soccer balls was really abhorrent with child labor and things like that. So they had found a seller, and they were selling them at the church. And Don came up and he said, I would love to buy one, but I'd like you to give it to someone who needs it. So Zach was able to take that and gift it to someone who needed it. I think it was a school maybe. But I just wanted to say that, both of your influence is far-reaching. We sort of kept up with Facebook and things like that. And we treasure who you represented as a couple and who you represent as an individual right now. And thank you for loving Dawn so much and for sharing your joy as a couple with everybody. So.
We give thanks for the memories and stories shared today, even though we can only know a portion of the world Don occupied in his life. We know he will live on through everyone he encountered and the stories they carry. Let us settle into a time of prayer. I invite you to speak with me, if you are so inclined, the words from the prayer of St. Francis of Assisi. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is dying that we are born to eternal life. Amen. I offer this poem as closing words, Epitaph by Merritt Malloy. When I die, give what's left of me away to children and old men that wait to die. And if you need to cry, cry for your brother walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give to me. I want to leave you with something better than words or sounds. Look for me in the people you've known or loved. And if you cannot give me away, at least let me live on your eyes and not your mind. You can love me most by letting hands touch hands, by letting bodies touch bodies, and by letting go of children that need to be free. Love doesn't die, people do. So when all that is left of me is love, give me away. All things must come to pass, and just as Don's life has come to an end, we also come to the end of this service of memory and hope. We will now extinguish the chalice which we earlier lit in his memory. And as I do so, I invite you to look closely. As the flame is extinguished, a puff of smoke will rise up, flow through this room and out into the world, to be carried forth by eternal winds. So it is with Don's spirit. The flame of his life may be extinguished, but his spirit remains with us still. I think his spirit of humor is here.